My name is Linda Schwartz, and I am the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs for the state of Connecticut. I served during the Vietnam War from 1968, and I stayed on active duty and actually went into the reserves, so I left the military in 1986. It was, of course, the time of John Kennedy. And as a very young girl, I heard him give a call to us to really serve our country. I think there was something about the Vietnam War because it was on the news every night. You just really couldn't put it in the back of your mind. It was there. So after I finished nursing school, I joined the Air Force. I was ordered to a battle casualty staging area, which was not really in Vietnam, it was in Japan. And the way the system worked at that time was that casualties were being airlifted out of Vietnam, and they were brought to Japan where they were stabilized, and then they had a long journey back home. I think that the kinds of injuries that we saw and the real stamina and camaraderie of the soldiers caring for each other, it really did make an impression on me. I would go to work and there would be a unit of maybe 20 young men close to my age, and not one of them had all their arms and legs. Some of them had no arms and legs. And it was, you wondered, what is their life going to be like? And we worked very hard, very, very hard to save them all. But sometimes that didn't happen. And I think that was another thing that you really had to deal with. And it was years before the VA or anybody recognized that the nurses who served saw more death and dying than the combat soldiers. For many years, the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder was not open for nurses or women. It wasn't even open for someone unless you had a combat infantryman's badge. That was actually the first thing. If you didn't have a combat infantryman's badge, then you couldn't have post-traumatic stress. I really wanted to be a flight nurse, and you have to go to special training for that. But when I went to flight school, I really wanted to come out of there with an assignment to go on flying status. And while I was at Plattsburgh, I got that assignment. I was assigned to Rhein-Main Air Force Base in Germany. I worked in the command post of the United States Air Force in Europe. My job was to review all of the transfers of patients from one place to another, and to be sure that when the planning of the missions were done, that number one, everything was on board that they needed, and number two, that when they got on the plane, there was a bed for them to go back to the United States. I think some of the more challenging things were different urgent missions where there was a catastrophe. For example, there was a bombing in Beirut. To get people out of there, to be able to work with physicians in planning how these moves were made. When we returned from Germany to the United States, I joined the 69th Aerovac Squadron out of McGuire Air Force Base, and I also started a master's program at the Yale School of Nursing. And while I was with the 69th, I was in an aircraft accident, and that was the end of my Air Force career. A very large cargo plane, the 141, we were at 30,000 feet, and one of the doors blew off of the aircraft. And they ended up with decompression sickness of the brain and spinal cord. The VA has called this a blast concussion because when the door blows off of the aircraft, it's like if you took a bottle of soda pop and you were shaking it up, because that's the oxygen inside the compressed. And when you flip that, it's like all of the equalization of the pressure. What actually happens to inside the body is that all the nitrogen in your body goes out of solution. And as most people know, when you get the bends, well, my bends were in the brain and in the spinal cord. It was really very scary. And it was like I had a stroke. I eventually, of course, had to go to the VA. When I was in the waiting room, I was the only woman. I was much younger then, so I was probably the youngest one. But a lot of the veterans, when they found out who I was or what I did, they were very welcoming. I remember sitting and waiting for, at that time it took, you handed in your prescription, you waited 2 hours for them to finish it and fill it. And so one of the veterans said, "Listen, we're all going down to the VFW. Would you like to come with us?" On my road to being an advocate, I was asked to testify before the Veterans Affairs Committee about what had happened to me. I had never been to Washington in any of the buildings, and now I was coming to the House Veterans Affairs Committee, and in front of me at the table was the VA Advisory Committee on Women Veterans, some of the members. One of them was my former chief nurse of the Air Force. The other one was a woman by the name of General Jeannie Holmes. She was like a hero to everybody in the Air Force because she became a major general. And they're up there saying that everything in the VA is good. They have cosmetics and things for women in the canteens. And when I got up, I said, General Holmes, General Wells, I have the greatest respect for you, but I don't know where you've been. It's actually in the congressional record. Because someone looked it up. I don't know where you've been because you haven't been where I've been. After the testimony, I just got up from my seat and walked straight out of the room. And out came my general and Jeanne Holmes. And they looked at me and I thought, this is it, the death. They said, would you like to go to lunch with us? We want to talk to you. And so in a way, I was kind of getting the sense that, number one, the United States of America and the VA had no idea until 1980 how many women veterans there were. So that was my time frame. And then they really didn't know what to do with us. Why weren't women using the VA? I have seen so many changes in the way in which VA reaches out to women, has made programmatic changes. They put a face on women veterans by honing in and focusing on how can we help women veterans. I did not see VA in an adversarial role. I do not see it as an adversarial role. I see it as being a system in which states, my state, we don't want to compete or duplicate, but together our mission is to create a continuum of care so that the veterans in my state, in the state of Connecticut, receive absolutely the best care both VA and I can provide.